Welcome back to the Open Mic Broadcast Network, the radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince. Of course, it is our mission to try to bring you some news that you could use. Today is no exception to the rule. We are fortunate to have on the line with us one of the SWAC broadcast brothers representing the Wildcats of Bethune-Cookman, and I'll present to some, introduce to others, Mr. Mike TRUILO. And I hope I said that correct, Mike, and you can clean me up when we get in, but welcome to the show, and did I get it off the ground correctly?
Close. TRUILO, but yeah, it's fine. If I had a nickel for everybody that's pronounced my name a different way, I'd have all the nickels. So
okay, then, well, I guess I'll just add to the kitty. I'll add to the kitty then on that. Well, look, man, first of all, let me say welcome. This is my first time speaking with you since you guys have been part of the conference. Welcome to the conference. I know it's been some buzzing and movement, atmosphere, good, bad, and ugly. But just welcome. And what has it been like for you guys crossing over to the Southwestern Athletic Conference?
Well, I was not with BCU when they were in the MEAC. I only became the voice of the Wildcats in 2021. But from what I've experienced in the last couple of years doing this gig, it's a conference with a lot of rich history to dive into and explore, and it's a history that we want to be a part of, and we want to write some of it ourselves.
Yes, sir. Well, writing it you have, in particular in baseball. Now, one thing that excited me when I heard of the additions for FAM and for you guys at Bethune was the baseball that you bring to the table. We know that football is king and everyone gets excited about football, but I got extremely excited about the baseball, softball blueprint that you would bring due to the consistent history that these programs bring to the table.
Yeah, and I think something that a lot of SWAC baseball and softball programs kind of didn't expect is the recruiting angle, because there is so much talent on the diamond in the state of Florida. And now your programs that have been traditional powers in the SWAC, like your Alabama states, like your Grambling states, they have competition when going to the Sunshine State to recruit, because we can say, hey, you can play at the same level against the same competition, but you can do so in your own state. You can do so closer to home.
Absolutely. Well, and you got, as you say, a lot of sunshine and rays in the state of Florida, which is a good draw. And especially for the kid who might be a tweener, as when I say a tweener, it's like wanting to leave home but not far from home and bring some good talent, skill sets to the programs.
Of course.
Now, when you look at the overall comparison, it wasn't a part of the MEAC. We'll just separate it now to the East and the West of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. When I look at the SWAC from the East side, I'm automatically drawn to the pitching depth. I'm also drawn to the defensive set. And in comparison, I look at the West. I look at the West as a slug them out, drag them out, big hitting teams. How do you see this in comparison from your vantage point when you look at the East and the West?
Well, it's kind of hard, right? Because the way that the baseball schedule is set up, we don't see the West in the regular season. So we only get to look at them at the tournament in the postseason. But as you said, like the pitching depth, right, the top 4 teams in the conference by ERA are all in the East. 5 of the top 6 teams by fielding percentage are all in the East. And I think that's something that Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M brought with them from the MEAC. So the MEAC is a very pitching-heavy conference, low-scoring games, a lot of low ERAs. The SWAC, by contrast, a lot of fantastic athletes on the baseball diamond that will hit the ball hard. They'll run hard. They'll steal a ton of bases. And that's something that our coaching staff has had to adjust to when making this transition.
Okay, and when you say make that adjustment, and in contrast, the West has had to make an adjustment, and the SWAC as a whole, to the style that you guys are bringing to the table. And we were talking a little bit before we got on. I'm thinking that Alabama State was probably more prepared for the style that you guys brought SWAC.
Well, and that's probably because Coach Vasquez has a lot of experience in the state of Florida. He was an assistant at BCU back in the day, so he knew what to expect when FAMU and BCU came into the SWAC, and he was able to kind of recruit and prepare accordingly. But other than that, I think, yeah, the East definitely has a bit more pitching depth and put more priority on pitching than the West does.
Okay, now to refer back to the scheduling, I'm hearing whispers. I haven't gotten any confirmation just yet, but I think that East versus West is about to dissolve, and everyone is going to play each one, I think, for the proposed 25 campaign, and that will change the whole landscape, and I think they'll just take the top 8 seeds according to that structure.
And I think that's a very good thing, right? Because if you look at the schedules between the East and the West, you look at teams like BCU, Florida A&M, Alabama State, Jackson State, they are week in, week out playing some of the top teams in the country. Just look at BCU this year. We played Florida, Florida State, UCF twice, USF twice. We beat Miami down in Miami. And that kind of out-of-conference competition translates directly into the conference schedule when you get to see, I'm going to bring up an example from last week at the conference tournament when Texas Southern and Prairie View, they were in a bracket with Jackson State and Bethune-Cookman. And, you know, because JSU and BCU had seen so much better arms consistently in their midweek throughout the season and had faced so much better arms in conference because the East just plays each other all the time, they were prepared to do what they did to the West teams with 3-run rule victories.
Are you being a little, as I say, nice, nasty man and saying that the West was no comparison for the East in that particular bracket?
I mean, the numbers really kind of speak for themselves, unfortunately. Now, big kudos to Grambling State for making the run on the other side and upsetting Alabama State, upsetting Florida A&M. That was a massive run, and we were all watching that both in the stadium and in our hotel room going, man, they can't keep winning, can they? They can't keep winning, can they? And then they went on and did the whole thing.
I was saying the answer was yes. Now, when you look at that, you know, like I would know that baseball, especially come tournament play, postseason play, it's all about who's hot and who's not. And fortunately for Grambling, they were on the short end of the pitching, but their offensive bats just came alive, man, and they were scoring runs almost at will.
I mean, that's really a testament to Cameron Buford, Jose Vargas, and the rest of the crew they've got up and down that lineup is absolutely ridiculous. I remember when BCU played them in the semifinals last year, and the Wildcats eventually won, but they pushed us all the way because that team can hit.
No doubt, no doubt. And one thing as an old catcher, I have a big tendency to look at pitching in a different realm. And I know people are very excited about velocity. They're very excited about a bunch of strikeouts. But I think that when you have limited depth and resources for pitching, I think you need to think at a different approach and start, and even in some cases, working by bullpen, by committee. And by that, I'm saying it's not about how hard an individual can throw, but if they can become a pitcher versus a thrower, throwing strikes when need to, learn how to throw sinkers and get a lot of ground balls and let your defense work for you. And I think, especially in that mid-tier level, guys get hurt by trying to blow the ball past when their top speed might be it's only 85 miles per hour.
And I want to bring up, as a perfect example of that, what Jackson State just did this past week, right? They basically rode 5 guys the whole time. And their top arms, Christian Womble, Isaiah Williams, and Jondrick Lawrence, all threw 200-plus pitches in 4 days, and yet it worked. They got consistent ground balls and weak pop-ups against us in the 2 games they won, and it helped them get short innings, keep their arms fresh throughout the week and get to the championship game.
Absolutely, because I'd rather have 5 or 6 pitches to get out the inning than to have 3 strikeouts, because I'm exerting more energy, effort, and like you said, you can reserve that arm. And I've always felt like that pitchers have an advantage over the batter, especially the first time they go through the lineup, because guys trying to get adjusted. And theoretically, if you did it according to the 27 outs that are allowed, you go through that batting lineup one time, that's the 3rd, 4th inning that you come in. Let's bring a new arm in and get them readjusted all over again.
And you know who did that really well this year was Alabama State. They didn't really have a standard rotation of arms. If you look down their statistics sheet, there's a bunch of players with 6, 7, 8 starts instead of the 14, 15, 16 of the top 3 and then a steep drop-off after that, because they just kind of went with, who's hot on the day, and you'll get a couple of innings, and then the next guy will pick you up, and the next guy will come in after that.
Well, and that's what it's all about, figuring out and finding ways to win. And if we had anything else to deal with, this latest coming from the NCAA and the big Power 5s, Power 4s, however you want to identify them, they, along with the NCAA, in my opinion, have sent a message out that you're going to either pay to play to stay at this D1 level, or you're going to have to go on back down to D2, D3 with the ruling that's been laid out. Yes, we can say it's fair, unfair. The haves and the have-nots, they've spoken, and it's time for necessary adjustments to make. How do you see this latest ruling, and what do you see as far as Bethune-Cookman in response to this?
Well, it's not good for the current college football landscape as we've known it for the past however many years. I think a split is coming, and it may be a split of the power conferences away from the NCAA. It may be that the NCAA creates a new division for them and reassigns all the other divisions under them. And I think, that's why you're seeing such of this scramble in conference realignment lately, because everybody wants a piece of that pie once that split initially comes. What I see in it for BCU and the SWAC in general is that the conference, may find ourselves in a different classification in a couple years, because the schools in this conference are not in a position to move up into other conferences or try and work things out in that regard. But I think on the flip side, the schools that we have now, and to a lesser extent the schools in the MEAC as well, can gain by banding together and staying with this conference no matter where the NCAA decides to put us, because we've got the fan base there, that tradition is there, and we can build on that.
I'm in 1,000% agreement with that, and I don't think it would be necessarily a black eye on the conference if they were to step down to D2. And when you look at the budget and the strings, because the price tag is going to get deeper and steeper each time we go around. We're already, staying afloat in some cases, and some we're so far down that a life preserve jacket wouldn't even help us right now when you look at other schools in the conference when it comes to budget. Now, you guys are in a unique situation because you're private, so your funding is not as public to those that are remaining in the conference. But at some point, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and realize this is who we are. Let's maximize this right here, and let's go out and have a good time within our own little footprint.
Yeah, and something that I want to throw in, like last season, I started traveling with the football team and doing our hometown radio calls on the road for the first time. And, I went to Jackson State. I went to Alabama State. I went to Grambling. And those atmospheres are up there with any college football atmosphere I've been in. And I went to a big school. I grew up around the University of Florida, went to their football games. We have as passionate a fan base around the HBCUs and around the SWAC as anywhere in the country.
No doubt about it. Welcome to one of the world's best kept secrets, right? A lot of people, just because you're small don't mean you don't have an impact, and nothing wrong with being small. Just maximize every opportunity that it presents itself to it. I'm glad you brought up the broadcast. I'll come out on a limb and say I appreciate the work that you guys do and put in through your YouTube channel, and how you are consistent with it and you provide that coverage. And what I really appreciate about it is the audio piece that you add even through YouTube. And describe the makeup of your team and the secret to you guys' success.
So first off, the idea to use YouTube was from our Director of Athletic Communications, Bryce Arnosky, because he saw the trend of a lot of schools in the SWAC putting their home broadcasts behind paywall, be either that with a subscription service or a video on demand pay-per-view service on their own websites. And his goal was to keep our broadcasts free for our fans and fans of other teams to watch. And of course, Bryce is the spearhead. He's also my baseball co-commentator if you watched any of our coverage this past week at the SWAC tournament. But then we have basically a different crew. Basketball is the biggest production because there we have a multi-camera setup, and our director, Darian, and our associate director, Eugene Robinson, do a great job with videography. We have a lot of students. Sabrina, who was one of our student directors this year, a student called Henson White, was my broadcast analyst for basketball, and there's just a ton of people behind the scenes that make the broadcast what it is.
Well, once again, I failed to mention at the top of this interview, congratulations for being recognized as the Sports Information Department of the Year throughout the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And as you mentioned, it takes a village to raise a child and to put on audio, video productions as well, huh?
Yep, and the job is never done, right? Even though it's the off season, we're all getting a little bit of a break, and then we're going to be, right back in the office, trying to see, well, what can we do better next year? What can we improve? What equipment can we obtain that could help? What personnel do we need to potentially contract out that could help? And it's all just in service of trying to make the best broadcast product possible for free to our audience.
Well, you bring up some great points, and we spend a lot of time and effort in training a lot of young ball players. I mean, not ball players, but athletic broadcasters and sports broadcasters and whatever podcast sections they want to do. And we make sure that they have every opportunity to get it done. But I would like for you, just to those that are listening, for a training tip. It's more than just showing up to the game, micing up, and start spitting out what the game action is. Could you go through your schedule of prepping for, let's say, any game, but like for reference of baseball, football, or basketball, but your game prep little ritual that you would have?
Well, my game prep obviously differs per sport, and I don't want to talk about baseball because that is it's a slower game. It's more stat-driven. So a lot of my prep for baseball is going through all the stats and writing down trends and a little bit of biographical information about the players. But a lot of it I can look up in real time. I'll have my laptop open during a game, and if I want to know, like, oh, what has this player done, with the bat in the last 10 games, I can go look that up. I don't have to pre-prep that. Now, for games that are faster, football, basketball, that's where a lot of the prep work does come in. I mean, for football, for example, I get the two deep every week on Tuesday morning, and I write a player bio for each player, their current season stats, lifetime stats at that school, what schools they were at previously, sometimes a bit of biographical information about every player. And I do that for basketball as well. And then I look at team stats and what the trends are and where they rank in the SWAC and where they rank nationally. And it's all just in service of, if I need a piece of information that is relevant at the time, I can look it down at my sheet and find it immediately, because the audience will not tolerate you stuttering and trying to find something that you've either tried to memorize or you didn't write down beforehand, and just try and come up with that on the fly. So I would say 60% of my job is preparation for the games instead of actually just calling the games.
Absolutely. For those who might be a little slow on that rebound, how much percentage did you say, sir?
60+% of my job is spent at my desk researching.
Absolutely. Now, when you say for every player, we'll stick with football because football is right a corner. Are you doing this for the linemen as well as the skill positions, or are you doing this for every player on those two deep charts?
Every player. Now, there is probably more to say about a wide receiver or a quarterback or a running back than there is an offensive lineman, but what if that outside right tackle makes a good play, gets a nice pancake block to get a lane for a runner up the B gap for 10 yards? I want to highlight that as much as I highlight the running back, and I need to be prepared to do that.
Okay. Now, do you travel with the team, Mike?
Yes. For football, we'll travel and do every game on the radio. For basketball and baseball, I will travel to big events like the SWAC tournament and also to games that are close. Like if we go to Tallahassee to play Florida A&M, I'll probably travel for those. For baseball, I did a lot of our local rivalries like FIU, FAU, Jacksonville, UCF. And I'm planning to up travel for next year for basketball as we get more games on our terrestrial radio partner here in Daytona Beach, 1380 WELE.
Okay. Now, speaking of basketball, there's a proposal out there, depending on who you ask or who you believe. It's going to be what I'm calling the 1-2-1 format, where it has women on Thursday, doubleheader on Saturday, and the men on Monday. How will that impact your broadcast team?
Well, for me, it's going to make it a little bit more difficult, right? Because we're working more days per week. There's less time to prep for the games now. And it's also, it makes our schedule a little less consistent. Because if we were only playing Saturday, Monday, you knew, yes, those 2 days are going to be long, but you get through those 2 days and then you have some decompression time and more longer prep time for the next couple of days. And especially on the road, you only had to go one place one day, one place the other day, and then back home. Now, if I want to travel for a road weekend, for example, let's say I'm doing the Texas Southern Prairie View trip, and we're playing Texas Southern on the first day and Prairie View on the second, I'd have to travel Thursday or probably Wednesday night with the women's team up to Texas Southern, do their game on Thursday, travel with them to Prairie View on Saturday, do the doubleheader with the women and the men, leave the Saturday doubleheader with the men, and then go back to Texas Southern on Monday for the men's game, and then fly home. So it makes it a lot more challenging for our schedule broadcast-wise.
No doubt about it. And what I'm hearing is with the implication of this new format, instead of people making the necessary adjustments, they probably start falling off with the broadcast. And I hate to see it coming because it's, in particular for radio, audio, a lot of people, yes, video is in, it's hot right now, but audio has proven that it's consistent, it's affordable, manageable, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and I love radio as a play-by-play broadcaster. It is my preferred medium to video broadcast because you can paint a lot more with your words. You can describe what the crowd is doing, describe what the court looks like, what the uniforms are, and it gives you just a lot more freedom to creatively use the English language in that way.
No doubt about it. Well, look, Mike, you have been a sport with all of this. A good season with the Wildcats, fell a little short, and things we want to look forward. And I want to be able to kind of speak with you throughout the course of football season coming up, man, get a little feedback, tit for tat with you throughout the course of the season. You think we can make that happen?
Of course, anytime.
Look, this young man, what, 28 years old, Mike?
Correct.
28 years old, and does a fantastic job. Get a chance to check these guys out on the Cat Eye Network on YouTube. Mike, I want to give you some closing thoughts and comments, and the floor is now yours.
Well, again, we just won Sports Information Office of the Year in the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and we could not do that without our tremendous staff, Director of Athletic Communications, Bryce Wojnowski, Cat Eye Network Executive Director, Eugene Robinson, my broadcast partners, Henson White and Daryl Natil, our social media director, Adam Sander, and our SID, Brian Harvey. All of those people deserve a ton of credit for helping, yes, get the broadcasts off the ground, help me and my fellow commentators stay informed about what's going on, have all the latest information, but also giving me a leg to stand on to do this job. And I could not imagine a better group of people to work with and to support Wildcat Athletics.
Thank you very much. Now, I didn't give you a hard time. I'm going to give it to you now at the end. If you couldn't pick up on his accent, ladies and gentlemen, he's definitely what they call a Yankee, literally. He's New York born and raised, and he likes them Yankees and Mets. The chance he gets to talk about it on his broadcast, he's sure going to bring them rascals up. And being from St. Louis, I just say bah humbug.
Well, I got to get through Bryce when we're doing baseball broadcasts because he's from New England, so he likes the Red Sox. So
that's just as bad, man.
Doing that.
Well, Mike, man, look, I really appreciate you. Welcome to the conference, and I know it's a couple of years late, but better late than never. Look forward to building and growing with you in the future, my man, and thanks for your time, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. I am the radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince. We want to thank you guys so much for joining in with us. Do follow me on Twitter X at The Mike Prince Show. Subscribe to the YouTube channel with the Open Mic Broadcast Network. Don't forget to check out the website at onradio.com. The time has come where I must exit stage left. So until next time, you guys be blessed, and we'll see you on the other side.